The transport helicopter's rotors cut through the humid Afghan air as it approached forward operating base Wolverine. Inside the cramped cabin, 18-year-old Sarah Martinez sat quietly among the other new arrivals, her compact frame dwarfed by the heavily armed Rangers around her. At barely 5 feet tall and weighing less than 110 pounds, she looked more like a high school student than a soldier heading into one of the most dangerous regions in Afghanistan. Staff Sergeant Mike Davidson glanced at the personnel manifest again, unable to believe what he was seeing. Martinez, Sarah J., age 18. Height 5 feet 0 inches. Weight 108 pounds. Marksmanship qualification, expert. Combat training, Ranger School graduate. The last part made him do a double take. Women weren't supposed to be in Ranger battalions, but apparently the Army had started some kind of pilot program. Davidson had been fighting in Afghanistan for 3 tours, and he'd never seen anything like this. The helicopter touched down with a jarring thud, kicking up clouds of dust that swirled around the landing zone. As the soldiers filed out, Sarah grabbed her gear and followed the others toward the operations center. The weight of her equipment was considerable. Nearly 60 pounds of armor, ammunition, and supplies, but she moved with the same steady pace as the men around her. She'd learned early in her military career that showing weakness, even for a moment, would invite doubt and criticism. Captain James Rodriguez waited at the edge of the landing zone, his weathered face showing the strain of multiple deployments. He watched the new arrivals with the calculating eye of a commander who knew that every soldier under his command might be the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. When he spotted Sarah among the group, his expression shifted to one of barely concealed frustration. "Martinez," he called out as the soldiers approached. Sarah stepped forward, snapping to attention with military precision. Rodriguez studied her for a long moment, taking in her youthful appearance and small stature. "You're the one they sent from the pilot program?" "Yes, sir," Sarah replied, her voice steady despite the obvious skepticism in her commanding officer's tone. Private First Class Martinez reporting for duty. Rodriguez exchanged glances with Staff Sergeant Davidson, who had walked up to join the conversation. Both men had the same thought running through their minds. How was this teenager supposed to keep up with experienced Rangers in combat operations? The enemy they were facing didn't care about pilot programs or progressive military policies. Taliban fighters were ruthless, well-armed, and operating on familiar terrain. They would show no mercy to anyone who couldn't handle the pressures of real combat. "Davidson, get her oriented and assigned a second squad," Rodriguez ordered. "We'll see how this works out." The captain's tone suggested he didn't expect it to work out well at all. As Sarah followed Davidson toward the barracks area, she could feel the stares and whispered comments from other soldiers. She'd experienced this reaction throughout her military training, but it still stung. At Ranger School, she'd been one of only 12 women selected for the experimental integration program. Of those 12, only 3 had graduated, and Sarah had finished second in her class overall. Her instructors had been impressed by her determination, tactical thinking, and especially her marksmanship skills. On the shooting range, she consistently outperformed soldiers twice her size. The barracks were Spartan, concrete walls, metal bunks, and lockers that had seen better days. Davidson showed her to an empty bunk in a corner room that housed 8 soldiers. The other men in the squad looked up as she entered, their expressions ranging from curiosity to open skepticism. Corporal Mike Thompson, a veteran of 2 previous deployments, was the first to speak. "So you're the girl they sent to play soldier with us?" Thompson's voice carried an edge that made it clear he wasn't joking. "Hope you can at least carry your own gear when things get serious." Sarah set her equipment down methodically, maintaining eye contact with Thompson as she responded. "I didn't come here to play, Corporal. I came here to do my job." Her voice was calm, but firm, carrying a confidence that seemed incongruous with her youthful appearance. Specialist David Kim, a quiet soldier from California, tried to defuse the tension. "Leave her alone, Thompson. We all had to prove ourselves when we got here." Kim had noticed Sarah's expert marksmanship badge and the Ranger tab on her uniform. Those weren't decorations that were given away lightly. Over the next several days, Sarah worked to integrate herself into the squad's routines. She participated in training exercises, equipment maintenance, and patrol preparations with the same intensity as her male counterparts. Her physical fitness scores consistently ranked in the top 20% of the company, despite her small stature. During endurance runs, she kept pace with soldiers who outweighed her by 70 pounds or more. The real test came during weapons training on the firing range. The squad was conducting qualification exercises with their M4 carbines, shooting at targets ranging from 100 to 500 meters. Sarah's performance was nothing short of remarkable. While other soldiers struggled with the longer-range shots, she consistently placed her rounds in tight groupings that impressed even the range instructors. "Where did you learn to shoot like that?" asked Specialist Rodriguez, no relation to the company commander. He'd been watching Sarah's performance with growing amazement. "My grandfather taught me when I was 8, Sarah replied, ejecting the magazine from her rifle and checking the chamber. He was a Marine sniper in Vietnam. Said the key was understanding your weapon and respecting the fundamentals. She reloaded and took aim at the 500-meter target, sending 5 rounds downrange in rapid succession. All 5 shots clustered within a 2-inch circle at the center of the target. Staff Sergeant Davidson, who had been observing from the range tower, climbed down to get a closer look at Sarah's target. The grouping was better than most experienced snipers could achieve. He'd been in the Army for 12 years and had rarely seen marksmanship of this caliber, especially from someone so young and inexperienced in combat. "Martinez," Davidson called out as the range session concluded. "Captain wants to see you in his office." Sarah reported to Captain Rodriguez's office with some apprehension. She'd been in the unit for less than a week, and she wasn't sure what to expect. Rodriguez's office was small and cluttered with maps, intelligence reports, and communication equipment. The captain looked up from his paperwork as she entered and saluted. "At ease, Martinez," Rodriguez said, gesturing to a chair across from his desk. "I've been reviewing your training records and observing your performance since you arrived. Your marksmanship scores are exceptional, and your physical fitness standards exceed requirements." He paused, studying her face. "But I need to know if you're ready for real combat operations. This isn't a training exercise. When we go outside the wire, lives depend on every member of the squad performing their duties." Sarah met his gaze directly. "Sir, I understand the stakes. I didn't come here to prove a point or make a statement. I came here to serve my country and support my fellow soldiers. I know there are doubts about my ability to perform in combat, but I'm confident in my training and preparation." Rodriguez leaned back in his chair, considering her response. "Tomorrow we're conducting a patrol in the Karengal Valley. Intelligence indicates Taliban activity in the area, and there's a strong possibility of enemy contact. You'll be assigned as the squad's designated marksman. Think you can handle that responsibility?" "Yes, sir," Sarah replied without hesitation. "I won't let the squad down." As Sarah left the captain's office, word quickly spread through the company that the tiny teen will be going on her first combat patrol. Reactions were mixed. Some soldiers expressed confidence in her abilities based on her demonstrated skills during training. Others worried that her inexperience and physical limitations might endanger the entire squad. That evening, Sarah spent extra time cleaning and inspecting her equipment. Her M4 carbine was fitted with an advanced optic system that would allow for precise shots at extended ranges. She also carried additional ammunition, medical supplies, and communication gear. The total weight of her equipment approached 80 pounds, but she trained extensively to operate under such loads. Specialist Kim approached her as she worked on her gear. "You nervous about tomorrow?" he asked, settling onto a nearby crate. Sarah considered the question carefully. "I'd be lying if I said I wasn't. But nervous and unprepared are 2 different things. I've done everything I can to get ready for this moment." Kim nodded appreciatively. "For what it's worth, I think you'll do fine. I've watched you train, and you handle yourself like a professional. Just remember that combat is different from anything you've experienced in training. Things happen fast, and sometimes the plan goes out the window. Stay focused, trust your training, and listen to the squad leaders. The conversation was interrupted by Staff Sergeant Davidson's arrival. All right, people, listen up. Tomorrow's patrol briefing is in 30 minutes. Martinez, you'll be positioned with Overwatch capabilities. Your job is to provide precision fire support and intelligence on enemy positions. Questions? No questions, Staff Sergeant, Sarah replied. I'm ready. Davidson studied her for a moment, then nodded. Get some rest after the briefing. We step off at 0500, and it's going to be a long day. The briefing room was filled with soldiers from multiple squads, creating an atmosphere of focused intensity. Captain Rodriguez outlined the mission objectives: patrol the Karengal Valley, investigate reports of Taliban weapons caches, and establish a visible presence in an area that had seen increased enemy activity. Intelligence reports suggested the possibility of an ambush, particularly along the mountain ridgelines that offered excellent observation and fields of fire. Sarah listened carefully to every detail, memorizing terrain features, probable enemy positions, and contingency plans. She studied the topographical maps and satellite imagery, identifying potential shooting positions and escape routes. Her role as designated marksman meant she might be separated from the main squad element, operating independently to provide support from concealed positions. As the briefing concluded, Rodriguez addressed Sarah directly. Martinez, your shooting position will likely be 200 to 400 meters from the main patrol element. You'll have communications with the squad leader, but you need to be prepared to make independent tactical decisions. If you identify enemy positions, you'll need to engage immediately without waiting for orders. Lives may depend on your reaction time. Understood, sir, Sarah responded. I'll be ready. The soldiers dispersed to make final preparations for the morning patrol. Sarah returned to her bunk and laid out her equipment methodically. Her rifle was clean and properly zeroed. Her ammunition was inspected and ready. Her body armor was adjusted for optimal protection and mobility. She'd done everything possible to prepare for her first combat mission. As she tried to sleep, Sarah's mind raced with thoughts of the coming day. She thought about her family back home in Texas, who had no idea she was about to face enemy fire. She thought about her grandfather, who had fought in the jungles of Vietnam and taught her that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the ability to function effectively despite fear. She thought about her fellow soldiers, who were counting on her to perform her duties regardless of her age or inexperience. At 0430, the wake-up call echoed through the barracks. Sarah had been awake for an hour, mentally rehearsing the mission plan and checking her equipment one final time. She ate a quick breakfast and joined the other soldiers for final preparations. The pre-dawn darkness was filled with the sounds of soldiers loading ammunition, adjusting equipment, and conducting communications checks. Staff Sergeant Davidson gathered the squad for a final briefing. Remember, this is Indian country. The Taliban know this terrain better than we do, and they've had weeks to prepare positions. Stay alert, maintain proper spacing, and follow all tactical procedures. Martinez, you'll move with the squad until we reach the valley floor, then take up an overwatch position on the southern ridgeline. Any questions? There were no questions. The soldiers had trained for scenarios like this countless times. They understood their roles and responsibilities. As the first hints of dawn appeared on the eastern horizon, the patrol moved toward the base perimeter and prepared to step off into hostile territory. Sarah felt a mixture of anticipation and determination as she checked her gear one final time. Her rifle was loaded and ready. Her radio was functioning properly. Her body armor was secure. She was as prepared as training and dedication could make her. Whatever challenges awaited in the Karengal Valley, she was ready to face them. The patrol moved out into the pre-dawn darkness, 12 soldiers spreading into tactical formation as they crossed the wire and entered enemy territory. Sarah took her assigned position in the patrol order, her senses heightened and alert for any signs of danger. Behind them, forward operating base Wolverine disappeared into the darkness. Ahead lay the unknown challenges of her first combat mission. As they moved through the rugged terrain, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. From a small town in Texas to the mountains of Afghanistan, she had overcome skepticism, physical challenges, and institutional barriers. Now, as the youngest and smallest member of a Ranger squad, she was about to face the ultimate test of her training and determination. The Karengal Valley stretched ahead, its steep ridgelines and hidden valleys offering countless opportunities for enemy observation and attack. Taliban fighters had used this terrain to their advantage for years, inflicting casualties on coalition forces through carefully planned ambushes and sniper attacks. For Sarah Martinez, the valley represented both danger and opportunity. The chance to prove that size and age meant nothing compared to skill, training, and determination. As the patrol continued through the darkness, Sarah maintained her position and stayed alert for any signs of enemy activity. Her first combat mission was about to begin, and she was determined to prove that the tiny teen could perform just as effectively as any seasoned veteran. The coming hours would test everything she had learned and determine whether she truly belonged among the elite soldiers of the Ranger Battalion. The sun crested the eastern mountains as the Ranger Patrol reached the entrance to the Karengal Valley. Sarah had been moving with the squad for over 2 hours, navigating rocky terrain and steep slopes that tested even the most experienced soldiers. Her small stature actually provided some advantages in the mountainous environment. She could move more quietly and required less energy to maintain the patrol's pace. Staff Sergeant Davidson signaled for the patrol to halt as they reached a predetermined checkpoint. The valley spread out below them, a patchwork of cultivated fields, scattered compounds, and winding dirt roads. Intelligence reports had identified several potential weapons cache locations in the valley, but the terrain offered countless hiding spots for both weapons and enemy fighters. Martinez, you see that ridgeline about 300 meters south of our position? Davidson pointed to a rocky outcropping that offered excellent observation of the valley floor. That's your overwatch position. You'll have clear lines of sight to most of the patrol route and good communication range with the squad. Sarah studied the terrain through her rifle's optic system. The position Davidson had identified was tactically sound, good fields of fire, natural concealment, and multiple escape routes. She could provide effective support for the squad while remaining relatively protected from enemy observation. Roger, Staff Sergeant. I can be in position within 10 minutes, Sarah responded, already planning her route to the overwatch position. Remember, your job is to watch for enemy movement and provide precision fire support if we make contact. Keep your radio on and report anything suspicious immediately, Davidson instructed. If things go sideways, your accurate shooting might be the difference between us getting home or not. Sarah nodded and began moving toward her assigned position, staying low and using available cover to mask her movement. The terrain was challenging, loose rocks that could shift and create noise, thorny vegetation that caught on equipment, and steep slopes that required careful navigation. But her training had prepared her for exactly this type of environment. As she settled into her overwatch position, Sarah arranged her equipment for optimal performance. Her rifle was positioned on a natural rock rest that provided stability for long-range shots. Her radio was easily accessible, and her spare ammunition was organized for quick reloading. She had clear observation of the entire valley floor and could see the main patrol as they continued their mission. Through her rifle scope, Sarah watched the squad move through the valley in tactical formation. Corporal Thompson was on point, using hand signals to communicate with the rest of the patrol. The soldiers moved with the practiced efficiency of experienced combat veterans, but Sarah noticed subtle signs of tension, heads constantly moving to scan for threats, weapons held in ready positions, spacing carefully maintained to minimize casualties from potential ambushes. The patrol's first objective was a compound located near the center of the valley. Intelligence reports suggested it might contain weapons or equipment used by Taliban fighters. As the squad approached the compound, Sarah adjusted her position to provide the best possible fields of fire. If enemy fighters were hidden in the area, they would likely wait until the patrol was close before initiating contact. Sarah's radio crackled with communication from the squad leader. Overwatch, this is ground element. We're approaching Objective Alpha. Report any movement in your sector. Sarah swept her rifle scope across the terrain surrounding the compound, looking for any signs of enemy activity. The valley appeared peaceful, too peaceful for an area that intelligence had identified as a Taliban stronghold. Her grandfather had taught her that when everything seemed quiet in hostile territory, it usually meant trouble was coming. Ground element, this is Overwatch, Sarah transmitted. No movement observed in my sector. Area appears clear, but maintain tactical formation. Something doesn't feel right. The squad continued their approach to the compound, with Thompson leading the way. As they reached the outer wall of the compound, Sarah noticed movement in a tree line approximately 400 meters to the northeast. Through her scope, she could make out at least 3 figures moving between the trees, and she caught the distinctive shape of AK-47 rifles. Ground element Overwatch. I have movement in the tree line northeast of your position, approximately 400 meters. Multiple individuals with weapons. Appears to be enemy fighters positioning for ambush. Staff Sergeant Davidson's voice came back immediately. Overwatch, can you engage those targets? Sarah adjusted her rifle scope and checked the wind direction. The range was within her capabilities, but engaging multiple targets would require precision and speed. Affirmative ground element. I have clear shots on 3 targets. Engaging now. Sarah steadied her rifle and took aim at the first target. The Taliban fighter was partially concealed behind a tree, but she could see enough of his torso for an effective shot. She controlled her breathing, applied steady pressure to the trigger, and fired. The shot was perfect. The fighter dropped immediately. Before the other enemy fighters could react, Sarah shifted to the second target. This fighter was beginning to move, having heard the gunshot, but he was still within range. Sarah's second shot caught him center mass, and he collapsed behind a fallen log. The third fighter had begun running toward better cover, but Sarah tracked his movement and led the target appropriately. Her third shot took him down just as he reached a large boulder that would have provided protection. In less than 30 seconds, she had eliminated 3 enemy fighters who had been preparing to ambush the patrol. Ground element, Overwatch. 3 targets down. Tree line is clear. No additional movement observed. Davidson's voice carried a note of amazement. Outstanding shooting, Overwatch. Continue observation while we clear the compound. The squad proceeded with their mission, emboldened by the knowledge that their designated marksman was providing effective overwatch. Sarah continued scanning the surrounding terrain, looking for any signs of additional enemy activity. Her actions had likely saved lives by eliminating the planned ambush, but she knew that Taliban fighters often operated in larger groups. As the squad searched the compound, they discovered a cache of weapons and ammunition hidden in an underground storage area. The intelligence reports had been accurate. The compound was being used as a Taliban supply depot. Captain Rodriguez's voice came over the radio, directing the squad to document the weapons and prepare them for destruction. While the squad worked at the compound, Sarah noticed movement in a different sector of the valley. Through her scope, she could see a group of fighters moving along a ridgeline approximately 600 meters to the west. This group was larger than the first, at least 6 individuals, and they appear to be armed with both rifles and rocket-propelled grenades. Ground element, Overwatch. New contact, western ridgeline, 600 meters from your position. Multiple fighters with heavy weapons. They appear to be maneuvering to attack your position. Davidson immediately ordered the squad to take cover within the compound walls. The discovery of the weapons cache had apparently triggered a Taliban response, and enemy fighters were converging on the patrol's position from multiple directions. Overwatch, Can you engage targets at that range? Davidson asked. Sarah checked her rifle's settings and considered the tactical situation. 600 meters was at the extreme range of her weapon system, and the targets were moving across difficult terrain. But the squad was pinned down in the compound, and the enemy fighters were carrying RPGs that could cause massive casualties if they got within range. Ground element, I can engage, but I'll need to reposition for better shots. Give me 2 minutes to move to a better firing position. Sarah quickly gathered her essential equipment and moved to a higher position that offered better angles on the enemy fighters. The new position was more exposed, but provided the elevation she needed for long-range shots. She set up her rifle and began engaging the enemy fighters systematically. Her first shot missed, the bullet striking rocks near the lead fighter's position. Sarah adjusted for the increased range and wind conditions, then fired again. This time her shot found its mark, and the enemy fighters stumbled and fell. The remaining fighters began seeking cover, but they were caught in open terrain with limited protection. Sarah continued engaging targets as they presented themselves, taking careful shots at the maximum range of her weapon system. Her marksmanship training proved invaluable as she compensated for bullet drop, wind drift, and target movement. Over the next several minutes, she systematically eliminated 4 of the 6 enemy fighters. The remaining 2 fighters, realizing they were under effective sniper fire, began withdrawing toward better cover. Sarah tracked them through her scope, but held her fire. The range was becoming too extreme for reliable shots, and ammunition conservation was becoming a consideration. Ground element, Overwatch. 4 targets down in the western sector. 2 targets withdrawing to the northwest. Area should be clear for your movement. Davidson coordinated with the squad to complete their search of the compound and prepare for movement to their next objective. The weapons cache contained enough rifles, ammunition, and explosives to supply a Taliban unit for several months. The squad documented the find and called for air support to destroy the cache once they had moved to a safe distance. As the squad prepared to move to their second objective, Sarah noticed increased radio traffic from enemy fighters. Her linguistic training allowed her to understand some of the Taliban communications, and it was clear that word of the firefight was spreading throughout the valley. Additional enemy units were being alerted and directed toward the patrol's general area. Ground element, Overwatch. Enemy radio traffic indicates reinforcements moving toward our area. We may have multiple contact points on the route to Objective Bravo. The second objective was a suspected Taliban command post located in a compound near the northern end of the valley. The route would take the patrol through several areas that offered excellent ambush opportunities, and Sarah's Overwatch capabilities would be crucial for detecting enemy positions before they could engage the squad. As the patrol moved toward Objective Bravo, Sarah repositioned herself to maintain observation of their route. The terrain became increasingly challenging, with steep slopes and deep ravines that could conceal enemy fighters. Her job was to stay ahead of potential threats and provide early warning to the squad. Approximately halfway to the second objective, Sarah spotted movement in a cluster of rocks overlooking the patrol route. Through her scope, she could see muzzle flashes as enemy fighters prepared firing positions. The Taliban had learned from the earlier engagement and were setting up a more sophisticated ambush. Ground element, Overwatch. Enemy positions in the rocks, 250 meters north of your current position. Multiple fighters with crew-served weapons. Recommend immediate cover and alternate route. Davidson quickly directed the squad to take cover behind a stone wall while Sarah engaged the enemy positions. This time, the Taliban fighters were better concealed and more difficult targets. Sarah had to use her knowledge of combat tactics to predict where they would expose themselves and be ready to take quick, accurate shots. Her patience was rewarded when one of the enemy fighters moved to get a better angle on the patrol's position. Sarah's shot caught him as he exposed himself, and he dropped immediately. The other fighters, now aware they were under sniper fire, became more cautious in their movements. The engagement developed into a tactical chess match, with Sarah trying to suppress the enemy positions while the squad maneuvered to flank the ambush site. Her accurate shooting kept the Taliban fighters pinned down, preventing them from effectively engaging the patrol as they moved to better positions. Corporal Thompson led a flanking movement that brought the squad within grenade range of the enemy positions, with Sarah providing precision fire support and the squad attacking from multiple angles. The Taliban fighters were quickly overwhelmed. The ambush was defeated with no casualties among the Rangers. Outstanding work, Overwatch, Davidson transmitted as the squad cleared the ambush site. Your shooting has been exceptional today. How are you doing on ammunition? Sarah checked her remaining rounds. She had fired more than 30 shots during the various engagements, but her ammunition load was sufficient to continue the mission. I'm good for ammunition, ground element. Ready to continue mission. The patrol reached Objective Bravo without further enemy contact, but the compound proved to be abandoned. Intelligence reports had suggested it was an active Taliban command post, but it appeared the enemy had evacuated the area before the patrol arrived. The squad conducted a thorough search, but found only evidence of recent habitation. As the patrol prepared to return to base, Sarah reflected on her performance during her first combat mission. She had engaged multiple enemy targets at various ranges, prevented at least 2 ambushes, and provided effective support for the squad throughout the operation. Her marksmanship skills had proven decisive in several tactical situations. The return journey to forward operating base Wolverine was completed without enemy contact, but Sarah maintained her vigilance throughout the movement. The Taliban often conducted follow-up attacks on patrols returning from successful missions, and the squad's discovery of the weapons cache would certainly provoke a response. As the patrol approached the base perimeter, Sarah felt a sense of accomplishment mixed with exhaustion. Her first combat mission had been more intense than any training exercise, but her preparation and skills had proven adequate for the challenges she faced. The skepticism she had encountered from some of her fellow soldiers would hopefully be replaced by respect for her demonstrated capabilities. Staff Sergeant Davidson gathered the squad for a quick after-action review before they returned to base. Today was a successful mission. We completed both objectives, discovered a significant weapons cache, and engaged multiple enemy contacts without taking casualties. Martinez, your performance as designated marksman was exceptional. Your shooting likely saved several lives today. As they crossed the wire and returned to the safety of the base, Sarah began to understand that her real test was just beginning. Word of her performance would spread throughout the company, and future missions would bring new challenges and expectations. But for now, she had proven that the tiny teen could perform effectively in combat alongside the most elite soldiers in the Army. The soldiers returned their equipment and began the process of debriefing and mission documentation. Sarah cleaned her rifle and recorded her ammunition expenditure, following standard procedures for combat operations. As she worked, other soldiers approached to congratulate her on her performance and ask about her shooting techniques. Specialist Kim was the first to approach. I heard you took out 7 Taliban fighters today. Is that true? Sarah looked up from cleaning her rifle. I engaged several targets that posed threats to the patrol. The important thing is that everyone came home safely. Corporal Thompson, who had been skeptical of her capabilities just days earlier, walked over to join the conversation. I owe you an apology, Martinez. I had my doubts about having someone so young and small on the team, but you proved me wrong today. That shooting was some of the best I've ever seen in combat. Word of Sarah's performance spread quickly throughout forward operating base Wolverine. By evening, soldiers from other units were approaching her with questions about her background and training. The story of the 18-year-old female ranger who had dominated the battlefield with precision shooting became the talk of the base. Captain Rodriguez called Sarah to his office for a detailed debriefing on the mission. He wanted to understand exactly what had happened and how her performance had contributed to the mission's success. As Sarah recounted the day's events, Rodriguez took detailed notes and asked specific questions about her tactical decisions. Martinez, your shooting today was remarkable, but what impressed me most was your tactical awareness and decision-making under pressure, Rodriguez said after completing the debriefing. You identified threats before they could engage the patrol, and you adapted to changing tactical situations. That kind of performance comes from proper training and natural ability. As Sarah prepared for sleep that night, she realized that her relationship with her fellow soldiers had fundamentally changed. The skepticism and doubt had been replaced by respect and acceptance. She had proven that her age and size were irrelevant compared to her skills and determination. But she also understood that each mission would bring new challenges. The Taliban would adapt their tactics based on the day's losses, and future engagements would likely be more complex and dangerous. Her success had raised expectations, and she would need to continue performing at the highest level to maintain her position within the unit. The tiny teen had survived her first test in combat, but the war in Afghanistan would provide many more opportunities to prove her worth. As she drifted off to sleep, Sarah Martinez was already preparing mentally for the next mission and the challenges it would bring. 3 weeks after her first combat mission, Sarah Martinez had become something of a legend at Forward Operating Base Wolverine. Her precision shooting and tactical awareness during that initial patrol had earned respect from soldiers throughout the company, but it had also created expectations that weighed heavily on her shoulders. Every mission brought new challenges and opportunities to prove that her success wasn't just beginner's luck. The early morning briefing room was packed with soldiers from multiple squads as Captain Rodriguez outlined their most ambitious operation yet. Intelligence had identified a high-value Taliban commander operating from a fortified compound in the Pesh Valley, approximately 15 kilometers from their current position. The target was responsible for coordinating attacks against coalition forces throughout the region, and his capture or elimination was considered a top priority. This won't be a simple patrol, Rodriguez explained, pointing to satellite imagery displayed on the briefing room screen. The target compound is heavily defended, with multiple fighting positions and clear fields of fire in all directions. Intelligence estimates at least 20 fighters providing security, armed with automatic weapons and possibly heavy machine guns. Sarah studied the imagery carefully, noting the compound's defensive advantages and potential weaknesses. The target building was surrounded by high walls with fighting positions built into the corners. The approaches were across open ground that offered little concealment, making a direct assault extremely dangerous. However, she noticed several elevated positions in the surrounding mountains that could provide excellent shooting platforms for a designated marksman. Martinez, Captain Rodriguez called out, drawing Sarah's attention back to the briefing. You'll be positioned on the ridgeline overlooking the compound. Your mission is to provide precision fire support during the assault and eliminate any high-value targets that present themselves. This is likely to be your most challenging assignment to date. Sarah felt the familiar mixture of anticipation and responsibility that accompanied difficult missions. The Taliban commander they were targeting was experienced and well-protected. Unlike her previous missions against regular fighters, this operation would pit her against some of the enemy's most capable soldiers. Sir, what's the range from the proposed shooting position to the target compound? Sarah asked, studying the topographical features on the map. Approximately 800 meters, Rodriguez replied. I know that's at the extreme range of your weapon system, but intelligence indicates it's the best position available. Do you think you can make effective shots at that distance? Sarah considered the tactical challenge. 800 meters was indeed at the maximum effective range for her M4 carbine, even with its advanced optic system. Wind conditions, bullet drop, and target movement would all become significant factors. But her training had included shooting at extended ranges, and she had confidence in her abilities. Yes, sir, I can engage targets effectively at that range, but I'll need current weather data and time to properly zero my rifle for the extended distance. Staff Sergeant Davidson, who had become one of Sarah's strongest supporters, nodded approvingly. We'll make sure you have everything you need, Martinez. Your shooting has been critical to our recent successes. The operation was scheduled for the following morning, giving the soldiers time to prepare their equipment and rehearse their assigned roles. Sarah spent the afternoon on the firing range, adjusting her rifle zero for the extended engagement distance and practicing shots at various ranges. Her grandfather's lessons about marksmanship fundamentals proved invaluable as she compensated for the ballistic challenges of long-range shooting. That evening, Sarah conducted a detailed inspection of her equipment. Every piece of gear was cleaned, tested, and organized for optimal performance. Her rifle was functioning perfectly, her ammunition was carefully inspected for consistency, and her radio was programmed with the correct frequencies for the operation. She had learned that attention to detail often made the difference between mission success and failure. Specialist Kim approached as Sarah completed her equipment preparations. "You nervous about tomorrow?" he asked, settling onto a nearby crate. "This sounds like it's going to be more intense than our previous missions." Sarah considered his question carefully. "I'm always nervous before a mission, but I'm confident in my preparation and training. The range is challenging, but not impossible. The key is to stay calm and trust my fundamentals." Kim nodded appreciatively. "The whole company is talking about your shooting. Some of the guys are saying you're the best marksman they've ever served with. That's pretty impressive for someone who's only been here a few weeks." The comment reminded Sarah of how much her situation had changed since her arrival. The initial skepticism and doubt had been replaced by genuine respect and confidence in her abilities. But she also understood that reputation could be both an asset and a burden. Success created expectations, and failure would be magnified by the contrast with previous achievements. The next morning's movement to the objective area was conducted under cover of darkness. The patrol included elements from 2 squads, plus additional support personnel and communications equipment. Sarah carried extra ammunition for the extended engagement, bringing her total load to nearly 90 pounds. The weight was substantial, but she had trained extensively under heavy loads and knew she could maintain performance despite the physical demands. The approach to the target area took over 4 hours, navigating difficult terrain and avoiding areas where Taliban sentries might detect their movement. Sarah moved with the main patrol until they reached a predetermined separation point, where she branched off toward her assigned shooting position on the ridgeline overlooking the target compound. The climb to the shooting position was steep and challenging, requiring careful navigation in the pre-dawn darkness. Sarah used night vision equipment to identify the best route, staying below the ridgeline to avoid being silhouetted against the sky. Her small stature was actually an advantage during this phase of the mission, allowing her to move more quietly and require less energy to maintain pace. As dawn approached, Sarah reached her assigned position and began setting up her equipment. The location offered excellent observation of the target compound, but the 800-meter range would test every aspect of her marksmanship skills. She arranged her rifle on a stable rest, checked wind conditions using natural indicators, and calculated the ballistic adjustments needed for the extended range. Through a rifle scope, Sarah could see the target compound clearly. The intelligence reports had been accurate. The facility was heavily defended with fighting positions built into the walls and surrounding structures. She counted at least 12 enemy fighters visible in various defensive positions, with more likely concealed inside buildings. "Overwatch in position," Sarah transmitted to the assault element commander. "I have clear observation of the target area. Multiple enemy positions identified." Staff Sergeant Davidson's voice came back through her earpiece. "Roger, Overwatch. We're beginning our approach. Report any changes in enemy disposition." As the assault element moved into position, Sarah continued observing the compound through her rifle scope. The Taliban fighters appeared alert and well-organized, suggesting they might have received warning about the approaching coalition forces. She noticed several fighters moving between positions and checking equipment, indicating they were preparing for potential combat. The assault began with a coordinated attack on multiple sides of the compound. As coalition forces breached the outer perimeter, enemy fighters began engaging from their prepared positions. Sarah immediately identified priority targets and began engaging with precision fire. Her first shot was at a Taliban fighter manning a heavy machine gun position that posed a significant threat to the assault element. The 800-meter range required careful calculation of bullet drop and wind drift, but Sarah's shot was perfect. The enemy gunner dropped immediately, eliminating a major threat to the attacking forces. Within seconds, Sarah had shifted to her next target, another fighter in a corner position who was engaging coalition forces with automatic rifle fire. Again, her shot was precise and effective, removing another threat from the battlefield. The engagement developed into an intense firefight as Taliban fighters attempted to repel the coalition assault. Sarah continued engaging targets systematically, prioritizing threats based on their potential to inflict casualties on friendly forces. Her shooting was so accurate that enemy fighters began seeking better cover, disrupting their ability to coordinate defensive fire. Through her scope, Sarah spotted movement in the main building that suggested high-value individuals were attempting to escape through a rear exit. She adjusted her position slightly to get a better angle on the escape route and waited for targets to present themselves. Her patience was rewarded when several figures emerged from the building, moving quickly toward vehicles parked behind the compound. Based on their clothing and the deference shown by surrounding fighters, Sarah concluded these were likely the high-value targets the mission was designed to capture or eliminate. Assault element, Overwatch. I have multiple individuals attempting to escape through the rear exit. Appear to be high-value targets based on their behavior and security detail. Overwatch, you are cleared to engage those targets, came the immediate response from Davidson. Sarah took careful aim at the lead figure, who appeared to be directing the escape attempt. The target was moving, but not erratically, allowing her to predict his path and lead appropriately. Her shot caught him center mass, and he collapsed immediately. The remaining escapees, realizing they were under sniper fire, began moving more erratically and seeking cover behind vehicles. Sarah continued engaging targets as they presented opportunities, systematically eliminating the enemy leadership that had been the primary objective of the mission. As the firefight continued, Sarah noticed that her accurate shooting was having a psychological effect on the remaining Taliban fighters. Enemy fire was becoming less coordinated and effective as fighters focused more on seeking cover from her precision shots than on engaging the assault element. This disruption allowed coalition forces to advance more rapidly and reduce their casualties. After nearly 40 minutes of intense combat, the compound was secured. Coalition forces had successfully captured the facility and eliminated most of the defending fighters, including the high-value target the mission was designed to neutralize. Sarah's shooting had been instrumental in the operation's success, eliminating key threats and disrupting enemy coordination. Overwatch, excellent shooting, Davidson transmitted as the dust settled. Your fire support was critical to mission success. How many targets did you engage? Sarah quickly counted her expended ammunition. 11 targets engaged, all confirmed hits. Multiple high-value individuals eliminated during attempted escape. The number was remarkable. 11 precision shots at 800 meters, all successful hits on moving targets under combat conditions. Even experienced snipers would consider such performance exceptional. As Sarah prepared to rejoin the main force, she reflected on the evolution of her combat experience. Each mission had brought new challenges and greater responsibilities. The initial skepticism about her capabilities had been completely replaced by confidence and respect from her fellow soldiers. The return journey to Forward Operating Base Wolverine was conducted without enemy contact, but Sarah maintained her vigilance throughout the movement. Her reputation as an exceptional marksman was now known throughout the region, making her a high-value target for Taliban forces seeking revenge for their losses. Upon return to base, The success of the mission was evident in the mood of the soldiers. The elimination of the Taliban commander represented a significant blow to enemy operations in the region. Intelligence gathered from the compound would likely lead to additional successful operations against remaining enemy networks. Captain Rodriguez conducted a detailed debriefing with Sarah, documenting her actions and their impact on mission success. Her shooting accuracy and tactical awareness had exceeded all expectations, and her performance was being documented for inclusion in after-action reports that would be reviewed at the highest levels of command. "Martinez, your performance during this deployment has been exceptional," Rodriguez said after completing the debriefing. "I'm recommending you for recognition at the battalion level. Your shooting skills and tactical contributions have been instrumental in multiple successful missions." Word of Sarah's latest achievement spread quickly throughout the base and beyond. Her reputation as an elite marksman began attracting attention from special operations units and sniper schools. The tiny teen who had arrived as an unknown quantity had become one of the most respected soldiers in the battalion. But Sarah understood that her success brought increased responsibility and expectations. Future missions would be even more challenging as enemy forces adapted their tactics to account for her capabilities. The Taliban would specifically target her position during engagements, and she would need to continuously evolve her own tactics to maintain effectiveness. Several days after the compound assault, Sarah received word that she was being considered for transfer to a specialized sniper unit. The opportunity represented recognition of her exceptional skills, but it would also mean leaving the squad that had become her military family. The decision would require careful consideration of her career goals and personal relationships. Specialist Kim was the first to congratulate her on the potential transfer. "I heard you might be moving to a sniper unit. That's incredible recognition for someone with your experience level." Sarah appreciated the support, but she also felt conflicted about the possibility of leaving her current assignment. "I haven't made any decisions yet. This squad has been supportive since day one, and I've learned a lot from everyone here." Staff Sergeant Davidson approached as they were talking. "Martinez, I heard about the potential transfer. Whatever you decide, know that you've earned the respect of everyone in this company. Your contribution to our missions has been exceptional." As Sarah considered her options, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. From the initial doubt and skepticism to her current status as an elite marksman, every challenge had been an opportunity to prove her capabilities. The tiny teen had become a formidable warrior, respected by fellow soldiers and feared by enemy forces. The war in Afghanistan would continue, with new challenges and opportunities ahead. Whether with her current squad or in a specialized unit, Sarah Martinez had proven that size, age, and gender were irrelevant compared to skill, determination, and courage under fire. Her story had become an inspiration to other soldiers and a testament to the power of preparation, training, and unwavering commitment to excellence. As she cleaned her rifle and prepared for the next mission, Sarah smiled slightly, remembering the panic in the Rangers' voices when they first saw her. "That tiny teen?" they had asked. Now, they knew the answer. She was exactly what the mission required, and she had proven it one perfect shot at a time. Her legacy was written in precision, courage, and the respect of the warriors who fought beside her in the mountains of Afghanistan. The transformation was complete. Sarah Martinez had evolved from an unknown teenager facing skepticism to an elite warrior whose skills were recognized throughout the military. Her story would continue, but the foundation had been established through courage, skill, and the determination to prove that excellence knows no boundaries of age, size, or expectations. The tiny teen had become a legend, one perfectly placed shot at a time.